Chosen one, why does it feel like the deepest cuts always come from the hands you held the longest? Why does the shadow of betrayal always fall from the person you stood in the light with? You've been asking yourself these questions in the quiet hours, during those long, silent midnight moments when the noise of the world fades away and the weight of your thoughts becomes heavy. You look back at the years, the energy, and the love that you poured into someone else. You poured it out freely, without counting the cost, because you believed they were standing on the same foundation. You believed their loyalty was as real as your own. But now, you are looking at the ruins. You are facing an abrupt silence and a cold distance that you never expected. And it hurts. It hurts in a place that words cannot easily reach. It makes you question your own discernment. It makes you wonder if your kindness was a weakness. You remember the subtle shifts and the small moments you tried to ignore. A message left unanswered for hours, then days. A tone of voice that felt just slightly too formal. A forced smile that did not quite reach their eyes. You saw these things, chosen one, but you chose to cover them with grace. You told yourself you were being too sensitive. You told yourself they were just tired or simply busy because your heart did not want to believe the truth. Your heart was not prepared to see a friend become a stranger or someone you defended in secret begin whispering against you in hidden rooms. You scroll through the old messages, looking for where it went wrong. You look at old photos, wondering if the warmth was always an illusion. It is a heavy, confusing grief. It is the pain of feeling foolish for believing in them. Let us speak the truth about this pain, chosen one. It is not just that they left, it is the way they left, and the realization that they were comfortable watching you struggle while they quietly protected their own interests. You stood as their shield when others spoke against them. You gave them your time when you had none to spare. You shared your bread, your dreams, and your prayers, and receiving coldness in return feels like a violation of the sacred order. It makes the world feel cold. It makes you want to lock the door of your heart and promise yourself that you will never trust again. But do not close the door just yet. Do not let their actions dictate the capacity of your soul. Your grief is real, and it deserves to be felt. But you must understand that this ending is not what it appears to be. Here is the mystery of your path, chosen one. This detachment you are experiencing is not a tragedy. It is a rescue. You are mourning a loss, but heaven is celebrating your protection. You see a door slammed in your face, but God sees a cage that has just been locked from the outside, with you safely on the other side. The person you never expected to turn away had to turn away because the path God is taking you on requires you to release a weight you cannot carry while holding their hand. God saw the hidden chambers of their heart. He heard the conversations they had when your name was mentioned. He saw the subtle resentment growing in their spirit, a resentment of the light you carry, a light they wanted to enjoy but did not want to pay the price to cultivate. So, God stepped in. He allowed the coldness. He permitted the distance. He allowed the exit to happen. Before we go deeper into how God protects His chosen ones, I must pause. If you are listening to this right now and feel the weight of the sudden realization that your pain was actually His protection, I want you to make a declaration of faith. Do not carry this heavy burden of confusion alone tonight. Release it into God's hands. Write these words in the comments below right now. God is my shield, and I am protected. Let this be a physical act of surrender. By writing this, you are telling the enemy that you will not let this betrayal poison your spirit. You are telling your soul that God has taken over the defense of your life. Write it down and feel the relief of letting go. Chosen one, this pruning is not without a heavy price. The cost of separation is often a quiet, cold loneliness. It is the silence on your phone. It is reflected in the empty seats at your table. It is the feeling of walking in a crowded room, knowing that no one there truly understands the weight of your calling. But you must understand that this loneliness is a protective barrier. It is the boundary God places around you to keep you from seeking comfort in the arms of the wolves. If you are not willing to pay the price of separation, you will eventually pay the far higher price of compromise. You will keep doors open that God has ordered you to close, and you will allow people to sit at your table who are actively poisoning your bread. Accept the stillness. Embrace the empty space. It is the space God needs to prepare your crown. You see, chosen one, the path of being chosen is always a path of pruning. You cannot walk into a spacious place with a crowded circle. If you are called to carry a unique weight, you must be willing to walk through unique separations. The crowd cannot always go where the calling leads. And when God begins to build your destiny, He always starts by clearing the ground. He removes the shallow roots. He cuts away the branches that look healthy but produce no fruit. It feels like a rejection from the world, but it is actually your consecration. It is God setting you apart so that you can hear His voice without the static of their opinions. He is preparing your foundation, and the first step of that preparation is separating you from those who would compromise the structure. Do not run after what God is removing. Let the separation stand. Have you ever wondered why, chosen one, the enemy does not send a stranger to do the work of betrayal? It is because a stranger can never get close enough to find the soft, vulnerable places in your armor. A stranger does not know your history. They do not know what makes you stay awake at night or what makes you weep. They do not know your secrets or your struggles. To truly hurt a chosen heart, the enemy must use someone who has walked past your defenses. It is someone you invited into your home, someone you sat across the table from, sharing your laughter and your bread. It is a painful truth, but it is one you must face. An unexpected enemy is almost always someone who began as a trusted friend. They had access to your life because you opened the door. You opened it in love, in trust, in sincerity. And they used that access to gather the stones they would later throw at you. In his profound exploration of human relationships, the Oxford writer C.S. Lewis wrote insightfully about the inherent risk of opening our hearts to others. In his classic work, The Four Loves, he captured this vulnerability perfectly. Lewis wrote, "To love at all is to be vulnerable. Love anything, and your heart will be wrung and possibly broken. Chosen one." Let those words settle in the quiet spaces of your mind. To love at all is to be vulnerable. You might be tempted to think that your mistake was loving too much. You might look at the betrayal and think, "I was too soft. I was too foolish." But Lewis reminds us that a heart that is never broken is a heart that has become cold, hard, and impenetrable. A heart locked in a casket of its own safety is a heart that cannot fulfill the destiny God has written for it. The pain you feel is the proof that your heart is still alive. It is proof that you chose to love, even in a world that has forgotten how. Do not let their betrayal turn your heart to stone. Accept the brokenness as a passage, not a destination. This pain of a close betrayer is not a new experience for the people of God. Thousands of years ago, King David sat in his palace, weeping over the exact same sorrow. He was a warrior, a king, a man after God's own heart. He had faced armies, fought giants, and survived wildernesses. But the wound that brought him to his knees did not come from a foreign enemy. In Psalm 41-9, David cried out in his grief, "Even my close friend, whom I trusted, he who shared my bread, has lifted up his heel against me." Listen to the tragedy in David's voice. "He who shared my bread has lifted up his heel against me." This was not a casual acquaintance. This was someone who had access to the king's private table, someone who had heard David's prayers, witnessed his victories, and shared his struggles. Yet they chose to strike him when his back was turned. If you are walking through this shadow today, chosen one, know that you are walking the same path that kings and prophets have walked. Your tears are not a sign of your defeat. They are the markers of a fellowship of suffering that God uses to refine His greatest leaders. Think of the metaphor of wolves in sheep's clothing. A wolf does not enter the pasture howling and showing its teeth. If it did, the sheep would run and the shepherd would draw his staff. No, the wolf comes softly. It wears the wool of the flock. It mimics the walk of the sheep. It sits quietly in the pasture, waiting for the cover of darkness. This is the nature of the unexpected enemy in your life, chosen one. They wore the clothes of a helper. They spoke the language of support and encouragement. They stood near you, nodding at your plans and smiling at your achievements. But all the while, they were carrying a blade beneath the wool. They were waiting for the moment when you were vulnerable. They were waiting for the season when the shepherd seemed far away. But what they did not realize is that the great shepherd was never asleep. He saw the wolf before it ever put on the fleece. He knew their design before they ever spoke their first words of false loyalty. And he let them come close to you, only to show you that your protection does not depend on the wool of the flock, but on the strength of the shepherd's hand. So, how do you handle the wolf when the mask falls? Your natural instinct is to fight. You want to expose their deceit, defend your reputation, and show everyone the blade they carried. But God says, stand still. The quiet dismissal is your greatest weapon. You do not need to wage a war in the mud to prove your integrity. You do not need to write long messages explaining your pain. You only need to step closer to the staff of the great shepherd. Let him stand between you and the wolf. Let his presence be the wall they cannot cross. When you walk away in silence, you strip the enemy of his power. He wants your anger. He wants your reaction. Your reaction gives him access to your energy. Dismiss them quietly. Close that boundary in peace. And let the silence speak for itself. Chosen one. God is granting you a shield of supernatural. He is opening your eyes to see through the masks. From this moment on, you will no longer be deceived by the wool. You will hear the growl behind the gentle word. You will see the hesitation behind the forced smile. This is not a curse of paranoia. It is a gift of protection. Declare this over your life today. My eyes are open, and my boundaries are sealed by peace. You do not have to fight the wolves. You do not have to expose them to the rest of the flock. You only need to stand under the shadow of the shepherd. He's raising a barrier between you and those who carry hidden agendas. Their whispers will no longer reach your ears. Their plots will no longer touch your destiny. You are being sealed. When God begins to expose the hearts of those around you, your only job is to stand still. Do not argue. Do not demand an explanation. Do not try to convince them to love you or to remain loyal. When the mask slips, let it fall. When they walk away in coldness, let them go. This exposure is not a disaster. It is a divine cleansing. God is removing the weights before the race begins. He is cleaning the passenger list before the ship sails into deep waters. If they could not remain loyal in the shallow pasture, they would have betrayed you in the deep valley where your life depended on it. So, thank God for the early exposure. Thank Him for showing you who they were before the stakes became too high. Let the separation stand. But how do we process the grief of this separation, chosen one? How do we heal from the shock of watching a wall we thought was protecting us suddenly fall to the ground? When someone you trusted walks away or their true nature is exposed, it feels like a collapse. It feels as though a part of your life has been demolished. You look at the empty space where they used to stand, and you feel exposed. You feel vulnerable, cold, and unprotected. But you must shift your perspective. You must look at the ruins, not through the eyes of a victim, but through the eyes of the architect. What you saw as a protective wall, God saw as a compromised barrier that was about to fall and crush you. The foundation was rotting. The stones were weak. If God had left that wall standing, it would have collapsed during the great storm coming in your next season. So, He demolished it Himself. He tore it down to keep you safe. This process of painful dismantling is one of the core ways God deals with His chosen ones. C.S. Lewis, in one of the most beloved chapters of Mere Christianity, used a brilliant and comforting metaphor to describe this spiritual construction. Lewis wrote, "Imagine yourself as a living house. God comes in to rebuild that house. At first, perhaps you can understand what He is doing. He is getting the drains right and stopping the leaks in the roof and so on. You knew that those jobs needed doing, and so you are not surprised. But presently, He starts knocking the house about in a way that hurts abominably and does not seem to make any sense. Chosen one, read those words again. He starts knocking the house about in a way that hurts abominably. This is exactly what the sudden loss of that relationship feels like. It feels like God is knocking down walls that you liked, walls you thought were necessary for your comfort and safety. But as Lewis goes on to explain, you thought you were being made into a decent little cottage, but He is building a palace. He intends to come and live in it Himself. The relationship you lost was built for a cottage. It was small, limited, and unable to support the glory God is preparing to pour into your life. To build the palace of your calling, God had to knock down the cottage walls of your past. He removed the people who could only live with you in the cottage because they would have been lost in or would have sabotaged the palace. The dismantling hurts, yes, but it is the proof that a grander architecture is underway. We see this divine architecture written across the story of Joseph. No one understood the pain of sudden, unexpected betrayal like he did. He did not expect his own brothers, men of his own blood, to plot his death. He did not expect to be thrown into a dark pit and then sold into slavery by the very hands of those he had lived with all his life. For 13 years, Joseph lived in the ruins of that betrayal. He was a slave. He was a prisoner. He was forgotten. It looked like his life had been completely demolished, but God was rebuilding the house. He was preparing Joseph to stand in the palace of Egypt as a savior of nations. And when the day of revelation came, Joseph stood before the brothers who had betrayed him and did not speak words of anger or revenge. In Genesis chapter 50, verse 20, Joseph looked at them and declared, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. You intended it for harm, but God intended it for good." This is the great turning point of your story, chosen one. The unexpected enemy intended their coldness, their rumors, and their distance to break you. They wanted to see you fall, but God took their malice and turned it into the raw material for your promotion. He repurposed their departure to save your destiny. Think of the metaphor of the safety exit. Imagine you are sitting in a beautiful hall. You are comfortable, the music is playing, and you feel completely at peace. But suddenly, the alarm begins to sound. It is loud, disruptive, and ruins the beautiful atmosphere. You do not want to leave. You complain about the noise, and you try to cover your ears. But the hands of the security team grab you and push you through the door into the cold night air. You feel angry. You feel rejected and cast out. But moments later, the building collapses behind you. The roof falls in, and the fire consumes everything you just left. Suddenly, your anger turns into tears of gratitude. You realize that the disruption was not an attack, it was your exit. The sudden coldness of that person was God's alarm system sounding in your life. He saw the spiritual collapse of their character before it happened. He knew that if you stayed in that relationship, you would have been crushed by the collapse of their life. So he pulled you out of the room. He did it abruptly, and it felt cold. But it was the only way to save your life. Look at the empty spaces in your life, chosen one. Where that friendship used to be, there is now only a cold draft. Where that partnership stood, there is a hollow shadow. But do not look at this vacancy with despair. The architect does not leave empty spaces by accident. He uses the gaps left by those who departed to install the massive, load-bearing pillars of his palace. A cottage can be built on shallow soil with light walls, but a palace requires deep excavations and massive stone pillars. The people God removed were like the temporary wooden scaffolding. They were useful for a season, to help you stand while the foundation was being poured. But now that the structure is ready, the scaffolding must be removed. If God kept them there, they would block the placement of the permanent stone. Trust the empty spaces. They are the sockets where His glory will be anchored. Chosen one. You must realize that every closed door is a sign of divine direction. God does not close doors to punish you. He closes them because He has walked ahead and seen what is behind them. He knows that if you walk through that door, you will walk into a snare. So, He locks it and He hides the key. Let this truth wash over your weary heart today. Let it replace the confusion with absolute peace. Declare this promise over your spirit. Every closed door in my life is a sign of God's protection. You do not need to try to pick the lock. You do not need to stand outside the door, weeping and begging for it to open again. Trust the hand that locked it. He is directing your steps toward a room that no man can close, a room where your peace will be permanent. If you are ready to rest in this divine redirection tonight and stop fighting for the doors God has closed, I want you to make this declaration. Let the words flow from your heart to the throne of grace. Type this in the comments below. I trust His redirection. By writing this, you are releasing the grief of the closed door. You are telling your soul that you believe the architect is building something better. Write it down and let the peace of God settle in your heart. Let the separation stand. Chosen one. You must understand the nature of the warfare you are in. The battles you face are not fought with flesh and blood. They are fought in the unseen realms, and the enemy's favorite tactic is the hidden snare. A fowler does not place a trap where the bird can see it. He hides it in the grass. He covers it with leaves and scatters seed on top to make it look like a blessing. This is what that relationship was. It looked like a blessing. It looked like support, loyalty, and safety. But hidden beneath the leaves was a metal cage designed to crush your wings. The enemy knew he could not stop your calling directly. So he tried to trap you in a relational covenant that would slowly drain your energy. He wanted to keep you busy, trying to please someone who was designed to drain you. But God walks ahead of you. He saw the snare hidden in the grass long before you took your next step. And instead of letting you walk into it, He triggered the trap early. He let the betrayal happen now, while you could still recover. He let the mask fall so you would see the teeth of the trap. In Scripture, this deliverance is celebrated as one of God's greatest works. In Psalm 91, verse 3, the psalmist writes with absolute certainty, "Surely He will save you from the fowler's snare and from the deadly pestilence." Listen to that word. Surely. It does not say He might save you. It says He surely will. The fowler is a hunter of birds. He uses nets, cages, and traps to steal their freedom and limit their sky. But the promise of Psalm 91 is that God is the deliverer who breaks the net. When the enemy sets a trap for your emotional stability, God does not just stand by and watch. He steps down into the field. He snaps the cords. He opens the cage. The betrayal you experienced was the sound of the trap snapping shut. It felt violent. It shocked your system. But when you look down, you realize that the cage is empty. You are not inside. You are standing on the branch above, looking down at the broken metal. The fowler has lost his prize. You have escaped. As you stand in this freedom, you must be careful not to fall into the next trap. The enemy is a master of substitution. When one trap fails, he immediately prepares another. In his brilliant book, Mere Christianity, C.S. Lewis explained this strategic trap of the devil. Lewis wrote, "The devil always sends errors into the world in pairs of opposites, and he always encourages us to spend a lot of time thinking which is the worse." Chosen one, listen to this strategy, pairs of opposites. The first error the devil tried to trap you in was false trust. He wanted you to trust a hidden enemy, to pour your life into a leaking vessel. But now that God has broken that trap, the devil is trying to push you into the opposite error. He wants you to fall into absolute bitterness and isolation. He wants you to say, "I will never trust anyone again. All people are deceitful." This is the second half of the pair. If the enemy cannot destroy you with false loyalty, he will try to destroy you with cold bitterness. He wants to keep you busy arguing about which is worse, being betrayed or being alone. Do not play his game. Reject both errors. Keep your heart open to God, even while you keep your boundaries closed to the wolves. Walk in the middle path of divine peace. Think of the metaphor of the snap cage. Imagine a bird that has been trapped in a small iron cage for years. It has forgotten the width of the sky. It has forgotten the strength of its own wings. But one day, the hand of the owner comes down and tears the door off the hinges. The cage is broken. The way is clear. What does the bird do? Does it sit in the corner of the broken cage, weeping over the cruelty of the bars? Does it spend its days analyzing the design of the trap? No. It spreads its wings. It feels the wind beneath its feathers, and it flies into the endless blue. The cage is behind it. The fowler is forgotten. This is your calling today, chosen one. The trap has been sprung and broken. The relationship is over. Do not sit in the ruins of what they did to you, asking, why? Do not spend your energy trying to understand their twisted motives. That is just sitting inside a broken cage. Spread your spiritual wings. Fly into the purpose God has for you. The sky is waiting. Declare this victory over your soul today. Let the words echo in the spiritual atmosphere. The snare is broken, and my soul has escaped. This is not a hope. It is a reality. The chain that bound you to their opinion has been severed. The rope that dragged you into their drama has been cut. You do not owe them your anger. You do not owe them your explanation. You only owe God your gratitude for the rescue. Stand tall. Look at the broken trap and smile at the enemy's defeat. He thought he had you, but he forgot who your Father is. He forgot that you are covered by the feathers of the Almighty. You are free. Imagine the fowler's anger when he returns to the trap. He had planned it so carefully. He hid the metal bars. He laid the seed. He waited in the shadow. He expected to find you trapped, struggling, and defeated. But when he looks down, the cage is empty. The lock is broken, and the bird is gone. Your freedom is the enemy's greatest frustration. They wanted to see you weep. They wanted to hear you beg for their return, or watch you defend yourself against their whispers. But your quiet flight, your refusal to participate in their drama, is their ultimate defeat. The enemy cannot stand your peace. He cannot stand that you are thriving in the very place he thought you would drown. Every time you smile, every time you worship, and every time you step into your purpose, you are reminding the fowler of his failure. Your escape is complete. Now, here is the final test of your deliverance. When you walk away from the trap, do not look back. Do not check their social media to see if they are happy. Do not ask mutual friends how they are doing. Do not wait for them to realize their mistake and apologize. Looking back at the trap is a sign that you still want to be in the cage. Let the dead bury their dead. Leave the fowler with his empty net. Your future is not behind you. It lies ahead, in the place where the wolves cannot follow. Every step you take away from them is a step closer to the palace. Let the separation stand. But how do you stand, chosen one, when the heat of betrayal still feels warm on your skin? How do you walk forward when you feel as though you have been dragged through the fire? You must realize that the fire was not sent to consume you, it was sent to consume the cords that bound you. When the enemy threw Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego into the furnace, he thought he was executing them. He thought the flame would turn their bodies to ash. But when the king looked in, he did not see them burning. He saw them walking freely in the midst of the fire, and the only things the fire burned were the ropes that had bound their hands. The betrayal you are walking through today has burned away your illusions. It has burned away the false trust, the compromises, and the people-pleasing. You are walking out of the furnace with your hands free. Listen to the promise God makes to you in your trial, chosen one. In the book of Isaiah, chapter 43, verse 2, he speaks directly to your present storm. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and through the rivers, they shall not overflow you. When you walk through the fire, you shall not be burned, nor shall the flame scorch you. What a magnificent, ironclad promise. You shall not be burned, nor shall the flame scorch you. Notice that God does not promise that you will avoid the water or the fire. He says, when you pass through, when you walk through. The chosen one must walk through the fire of betrayal. You must feel the heat of the unexpected enemy's betrayal. But the promise of heaven is that you will not carry the smell of smoke. The flame will not leave a scar on your destiny. It will only burn away what was never meant to go with you into the next season. God is with you in the furnace. He is the fourth man walking beside you in the flame, keeping your heart cool. In his masterpiece on human suffering, The Problem of Pain, C.S. Lewis wrote a passage of such immense spiritual comfort that every chosen one should write it upon the doorposts of their heart. Lewis wrote, God, who foresaw your tribulation, has specially armed you to go through it, not without pain but without stain. Let those words breathe into your soul. Not without pain but without stain. God knew this betrayal was coming. He saw the day they would turn away, years before they even met you, and He did not leave you defenseless. He specially armed you. He gave you the grace, the resilience, and the spiritual authority to survive the shock. The pain is real, yes. God does not deny your tears or mock your grief, but He promises that you will go through it without stain. The deceit of others will not make you a deceitful person. The bitterness of their betrayal will not poison your capacity to love. You will walk out of this season with your character intact, unstained, pure, elevated. The armor God placed on you is stronger than the blades they threw at you, chosen one. You are stepping into a new room, a room of divine honor and quiet peace. The season of fighting for recognition from people who did not value you is over. The season of trying to prove your loyalty to those who were waiting for you to stumble is finished. God is preparing a table for you in the presence of your enemies, not so you can gloat, but so they can see that the favor of God cannot be boycotted by human betrayal. They tried to limit your sky, but God has given you the horizon. Declare this over your spirit as you stand on the threshold of your new season. I am stepping into my place of honor, and my peace is permanent. Let the past slide into the dark. Do not carry the baggage of their betrayal into the palace He is building. Your hands are empty, so they can receive the new blessings He is preparing. Step forward. Your destiny is unstained, and this, chosen one, is the legacy of the unstained. When you walk out of the furnace, people will look at you expecting to see scars. They expect to hear bitterness in your voice and see hatred in your eyes. But instead, they see only grace. They see a heart that is still soft, a spirit that is still generous, and eyes that still look forward with hope. This is the ultimate miracle. The fire did not change your nature. It only proved what you were made of. You did not become a wolf to survive the wolves. You did not use their deceit to fight their lies. You remained the lamb, protected by the Lion of Judah. Your character is your legacy. It is the living evidence that God's shield is real, active, and impenetrable. You have walked through the fire, and you are unstained. Before you close your eyes tonight, let us lay this heavy burden down. Let us speak to the great shepherd who has watched over your soul through every step of this storm. Pray this with me. In the stillness of your heart, Father, I thank you for your active protection. I thank you that even when my heart was breaking, your hand was protecting my destiny. I release the one who betrayed me. I forgive the unexpected coldness, the hidden whispers, and the broken trust. I release them from my debt, and I leave them in your hands. Heal the wounds of my heart, Lord. Wash away the residue of confusion and self-doubt. Open my eyes to see the palace you are building in my life. I receive your protection. I rest in your direction. In Jesus' name, Amen. Feel the weight lifting from your shoulders, chosen one. The defense of your life is no longer your job. It is His. Thank you for walking this meditative journey with us today on C.S. Lewis Sermons. If this prophetic word has brought peace to your troubled heart, and you feel the strength of God's shield surrounding you tonight, I invite you to subscribe to this channel and join our community of faith. Share this message with another chosen soul who may be weeping in the silence of betrayal. Let them know they are not alone and they are not unprotected. Rest tonight under the shadow of the Almighty. Let the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, guard your heart and your mind. The storm has passed, the snare is broken, and the separation is complete. Let the separation stand.